All right. Oh, there we go. All right. I'm Coach Kells, and welcome to Coach's Corner. Coach Weaver and I have flipped the roles today. Anyways, Coach Weaver, welcome to Coach's Corner, and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Anyways, so Coach, why don't you tell us a little bit about what sport or what you do at University High School? I know we'll get into what sports you've coached as well, but maybe tell everybody about your role.
Okay, I am the athletic director at University High School, and I am finishing up the second year as the athletic director. I was the assistant athletic director for 3 years before that.
All right, and why don't you tell everybody a little bit about, obviously you're athletic director now, but prior to that, you were also a coach at university. Want to tell us about what sports you've coached and how many years you've coached at university?
Okay, I was the wrestling coach, both the assistant and the head coach since the school opened. I also did a little stint as the bowling coach, co-head coach as the bowling coach with my wife. We both did a stint as the bowling coach, and those are the only two sports that I've coached there at university.
Wow, co-head coach with your wife. That is an awesome thing. I can imagine. It had to be a great experience. That's great.
It was, no doubt.
I don't think Mrs. Kells and I would coach very well together. So that would be awesome.
It was definitely that was her first go at coaching. And it honestly, it was her last. I don't mean that in a good or bad way. It was just,
sure.
Well, actually, I guess it wasn't her last, because then a few years later, then she ended up helping me with the girls wrestling team and the boys wrestling team, both as a girls wrestling coach, and she took over the tutoring and the academic part for wrestling. But it was, you'd have to ask her if it was what she expected or not. But I think it was just a little bit different than what she expected. So it was definitely an experience. I'll say that, coaching with my wife.
Sorry, I'm not trying to get you in the hot seat there. And you know what? It speaks bounds about your relationship to be able to work together like that, because I know that can be challenging. And I know you have a great wife. Obviously I know her as well. So, it's good stuff. And anyways, moving on. So let's talk about where you grew up. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up here in Orange City. And that's, to me, that's great. Orange City, when I grew up, we moved to Orange City before I was in kindergarten. I was born about 2 hours, a little more than 2 hours south of here in Vero Beach. We moved up here, like I said, before kindergarten, and have grown up here. Went to Orange City Elementary and went to what used to be one of the only two junior highs around here, Deltona Junior High, which is now, Deltona Middle School, and then DeLand High Schoal. I hate saying that part because, I don't like DeLand anymore. And then other than going to college, I've been here my whole life. So, I've grown up here.
Wow, that's awesome. And can you tell us a little bit what that's like, though, being a DeLand alum and now being a university, athletic director, leader, knowing that everything we do, we want to beat DeLand in?
Well, it's interesting because I think people expect me to have a little more empathy or sympathy or whatever for those yellow and gold folks up the road over there, but I can't help it. I just have this desire to do everything I can do to just not just to beat them, but to beat them badly.
Yes.
I don't know why. Maybe it doesn't make sense, but anytime. And it has nothing to do with their coaches or anything that ever happened to me there or anything like that. But when I see them on the other side of the field, on the other side of the court, anything like that, just I feel this. I know it sounds stupid, but this fire, this burning, this whatever, where I just I want to see them go down like almost. There's probably only one other school out there that I feel even a little bit more fire about, as far as I want to beat them badly, so it's weird, but I also think that goes back to, even all the way back to junior high. I remember talking with John DeVito, who's also an Orange City original, that we always talked about, well, why can't Orange City have a high school? And before either one of us knew our career paths, and so maybe it goes back to that. But it is weird when you see, DeLand High School on the other side, or Deltona High School on the other side, how bad I just want to just beat them so bad. So
That's an awesome rivalry that we've developed, over the years, and that's great to hear that you have that competitive spirit and that drive to beat those schools. And how cool is it that you and John, or Mr. DeVito, both grew up in this area, both ended up working at university, leaders there. I just think that speaks bounds for both of you guys, and staying in your community and being those role models for young men and women. So pretty awesome stuff. Anyways, so let's go ahead and talk about what sports you played growing up. What sports did you play?
Oh, I played all the normal ones growing up. Soccer, baseball, basketball. Those were the main ones right up until, and believe it or not, I was a pretty good basketball player. I know as a wrestler, we're not supposed. I see you laughing. But,
that round ball.
Yeah. And I know as a wrestler, we're not supposed to like basketball, but I think what I liked about basketball, honestly, was fighting for the rebound, which maybe that makes sense. The rough part of it. Yeah. I don't know if they had technicals as a 9-year-old. But then as I got to be about 9 or 10 years old, my dad came home and introduced myself and my brother to BMX racing. And so then we left the more traditional little league type sports and got into BMX racing, which I ended up being pretty dang successful at, and actually ended up being third in the nation at that. And and we spent some time doing that, and then after that, we ended up going. It's funny because I just had this conversation with my youngest son last night. Ended up being what he's calling a cowboy for a couple of years, and that was my sport, so called, until I found wrestling. So I know. I see the look on your face there too.
That's awesome. I mean, I'd love to see a picture of you with the BMX, with a bike ride. And when we talk BMX, are you talking like the racing, like around tracks? Or are we talking like doing like half pipes and stuff like that?
No, we're talking, around the tracks with the jumps, with the helmets, and there's an old movie maybe in the late 80s, early 90s called Rad, where they did the tracks.
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
Okay.
I know my age here too, but that's awesome.
Yeah. It wasn't like cross country tracks, but it was clay and a little bit of concrete and stuff like that. But we had, I'm trying to think what kind of cars my parents had. They had like some station wagons and trucks and stuff like that, and they'd throw our bikes and our gear in the trucks, and we'd travel up and down and all over the place. And
that's pretty cool. I mean, that'd be great for the student body to hear, because I'm sure that could make you relatable to a whole different population at the school, because that's not a sport that you see often, and know that you compete on that level is pretty darn awesome.
It was, and it was definitely a family thing too. Like I said, me and my brother both did it, and I know, I obviously, it was only me and my brother growing up, so there was obviously that competitive thing. So, I can say
who was better.
I could say he never got to be third in the nation. So, Andy, love you, but hey,
That's awesome. That's good. Good. Well, let's talk about high school. So you get to high school. Obviously, you found wrestling. Did you do any other sports in high school as well, or did you?
I actually did volleyball as well.
Wow.
Yeah, I did volleyball for the first 3 years of high school. And then going into my senior year, decided that I needed to focus on wrestling. And I'll go ahead and say that I don't regret that decision, giving up volleyball to focus on wrestling. But to any athletes or parents that are watching, I'll say that I don't know that that really made a difference in my wrestling. So to give up the one to focus on the other, again, I don't know that it really made a difference. So, like I said, do I regret giving up volleyball? No. But did it make any difference in the outcome of my wrestling? I don't think so.
Oh, well, let's talk now. I know you obviously wrestling was your favorite. Well, not favorite. That's the sport that you go on to coach. Not to give
It
away
was
too
my
much.
favorite.
Yeah, and the one you chose your senior year. So it led you on to college, correct? Where did you
Yes.
go to college, and tell the people about your? Did you wrestle in college and all that information?
I went to college, Campbell University, a little small school in North Carolina. So go Camels, roll humps, you know. And I did. I went there. I was a member of the wrestling team. I was not one of their stars. I was not, one of their starters or anything like that, which probably led me to learning a lot of lessons. Maybe that I don't know that again that your typical athlete may not ever get a chance to learn, because you're always sitting the bench, so to speak. And so to me, one of the things that a sport like wrestling does teach is it's not always about the wins and losses. It's about the work that you put in. It's about the path to get there. And I would put in the same work as the other folks on the team, but it's just in wrestling, me and you wrestle, and if you beat me, you're the man.
Yeah.
And college, my coach did that a little bit, but he also he didn't necessarily have wrestle offs all the time. He would just kind of watch us in practice and say, well, I think this kid's gonna get the spot over that kid, and that's what happens. I did fight the injury bug a lot, and so it is what it is. You got to learn to take your medicine, so to speak, and so it is what it is. I ended up with my degree, and here I am. So I don't regret it, but it definitely taught me a lot of lessons. So
I think that's the greatest thing about sports. Obviously, the life lessons, we all know that as coaches, but I mean, and then dealing with that adversity and fighting through it. I mean, that speaks bounds about your character and personality. Because you see that story all too often, especially, nowadays, someone doesn't get their way, they quit, they transfer, they give up. So, it's awesome to see you persevere and battle through and just, fight through that. So in Campbell, since you guys were the Camels, is everyday hump day there?
you know, a lot of our shirts said that. I do believe, that I think that was a logo we had on shirts. Every day is a hump day. So
Every day's a hump day. That's
yeah.
awesome. Well, let's kind of go into your coaching then. We kind of talked about it later. How many total years have you coached the sport of wrestling? I guess we'll start with that.
Total years I've coached the sport of wrestling, I'm gonna say, probably ballparking 25 years.
Wow.
I've also done a little bit of coaching soccer. I've also coached a little bit of basketball, believe it or not. One of my high school coaches started the police athletic league in DeLand, and so he actually got me involved with coaching and with the police athletic league. So it was kind of every sport they offered. He was like, "Hey Matt, why don't you coach this? Why don't you coach that? Why don't you coach this?" So pretty much every sport they offered, I was coaching it. And believe it or not, my basketball teams were pretty dang successful. I mean, in the police athletic league,
Sure.
anyways, they were. So, I even coached a little bit of volleyball. So, it was. But I tell you, basketball is a totally different world than what I was used to, for sure. Wrestling, you go out there, you grab a hold of somebody, you rip their freaking heads off. Basketball, you can't necessarily do that. So,
Sure.
yeah.
That's awesome. Well, that's cool to hear your journey to coaching, because I think that was kind of what my question. I was going to actually kind of ask that next question. How was your journey to become a coach? What was your first experience as coaching? And I guess it was all the Police Athletic League. Then how did you transition from there to the high school level?
Well, at that time, DeLand High School was my first high school coaching job. Again, since I was, back around and with the Police Athletic League, my former coach, Coach Rutherford, who was with the Police Athletic League, I think he just said, I don't think DeLand has a wrestling coach right now. And next thing you know, here I am in the athletic director's office, and I was the assistant coach at first. And then next thing you know, I'm head coach, and now here we are. I went from DeLand and ran into some teaching certification issues at first, which was no fault of anyone's. Yeah,
I think we all run into those first couple of years. I know I do, so I feel that.
Yeah, and then went from DeLand and ended up at Pine Ridge for a year, and then from Pine Ridge to Atlantic, and then from Atlantic, I believe that's when me and you met, when I was at Atlantic, and then from Atlantic to Deltona, and from Deltona now here at University. So.
Wow. That's awesome. It's great to hear you've been serving the youth of this county for so many years in so many different ways. So that's awesome. So let's talk about your athletes. So in a Coach Weaver coach sport, or what do you hope that your athletes, remember or take away from a sport that you coach?
Man, that's so much. But one thing I want them to know is, obviously, during the sport, obviously I want them to win, but I want them to know that hard work does pay off. Whether you're talking about the sport, whether you're talking about life. And will it always pay off as a win? No. But will it pay off in the fact that you're not giving up and that you're not quitting? That's how it's going to pay off, because no matter what, people are watching you. So therefore, whether you're talking about later in life, as a marriage, as a job, as a whatever, you've got to continue to push through. And no matter what, you're going to come out the other side. You've got one of the phrases that I like to use is, you've got to fail forward. So therefore, today may not go great, but you've got to fail forward. So you've got to continue to move forward, because even though in high school sports, myself, yourself, all of us, we're focusing on the next competition and winning and all that kind of stuff. High school sports really isn't that big of a deal in the grand, great, big picture. And I struggle saying that because I know all of our jobs, but it isn't. So therefore, we've got to continue to push forward, and we've got to learn to fail forward and keep working through it. So I think if the kids can learn that, and I think I've done my job, and they will be a productive member of society if they can do that.
Wow, I like that statement, fell forward. I think I've heard you say it before, but that's a good, powerful statement, and a good motto. What is your most memorable moment as a coach?
My most memorable moment as a coach, it would be easy for me to say, go back to the championships and stuff like that. That would be an easy one. But I'll say that one of the, probably a couple years ago, and it was actually here at University. It was on my birthday. And one of our wrestlers' moms, Karina Moore, she reached out to me about a local organization. I honestly can't remember the name of the organization that was feeding the homeless. And so I mentioned and it happened to be on my birthday that they were feeding the homeless. And so I mentioned to the team, and I said, look, I said, for my birthday, this is what I would like is for all of you to come with me. It was and they were doing it at a church in Sanford. And I said, I would like for all of you to come with me and do this. And, just, you don't have to, it's not mandatory. And a matter of fact, I think it was even a Sunday. It was definitely a non-school day, and it was during wrestling season. And, so we met at the high school and we just kind of carpooled over there. It was, 10 or 15-minute ride. And we went to the church. And I'm going to guess that there were between 30 or 35 kids that showed up. And, we were there for a couple hours. We helped set up, we helped clean up. And, so we were all, including myself, we were all out of our comfort zone. And you could tell that all of us were out of our comfort zone, just body language, the look on our face, all that kind of stuff. But we did help feed the homeless that day. And then that day, again, it was my birthday, and my wife went with us. My two youngest went with us. And on the way home, I like my own time, my own space. But my wife told me, she said, now when we get home, don't be upset. so after we got home, about 5 minutes later, I see all these cars pulling in the driveway. And all of those kids pulled in the driveway and they came with a cake. And so, it really has nothing to do with wrestling or anything like that, but just that day to me, it really did, as an individual, it really did touch me, just because, one, those kids cared enough about the community and about me to show up and do that, with feeding the homeless, and then come to my house and have cake.
Wow.
And it was with my two youngest kids that got to see that these older kids they looked up to did all this. So, and I used to preach a lot about family, and during those days, we even have a tree at the school where we would call it our family tree, that we used to have like little breakdowns and family meetings, so that would definitely be a huge memory that I'll take with me.
Wow, that's a great memory. Thank you for sharing that. And, one of the things I'd like to share with the community that maybe do or do not know you that well, I know your heart has always been outstanding. The things you do, one of the things that I know personally that has always stuck out to me is the role you took in Derek Brassels. For those of you who don't know, watching, we have a wrestler at university who was diagnosed with cancer, and Coach Weaver just took charge of, really helped lead a fundraising effort and doing all kinds of great things for Derek. And, I know personally, I thought that was just amazing. And you just showed your character and your heart, and how willing you are to put your athletes in front of anything, that you can do to help. And it was just amazing. So, I want to commend you on that. I never really got to do that, but the community know about that as well. And, so anyways, I guess we'll wrap it up here. I know the question you asked me, which was fun. If you had to pick 4 people to eat dinner with, who would they be? They could be living, dead, and why?
Man, I've been dreading this question.
It's tough.
It is. It's so hard. I've been dreading it. And my son even asked me yesterday, like, who's your answer gonna be? Obviously one of them is going to be Dan Gable, just because, for those of you that don't know, I challenge you, Google Dan Gable. He is the man of all sports. He's a wrestler, but he's the man. but and just hearing the stories, hearing how he motivated not just the team, but all the books I've read, all those videos I've watched, but he was able to get into each individual wrestler's head and knew how to motivate each one. I mean, just he phenomenal coach, phenomenal athlete. Just there's no other. I mean, the greatest there is, there was, or ever will be. So that's one for sure. Um, you know, then I think the next one would have to be my great grandfather, Granddaddy Ed. Just a great man. I mean, uh, and yeah, just I can't say enough about him. As a little kid, he died when I was late teens, early 20s, but he used to take me and my brother fishing when we were little and did a lot of that stuff, and I would help him cut his grass and rake his leaves, and just had a lot of great stories. And so Granddaddy Ed would definitely be number two. Um, this one might sound a little weird, but I'm just thinking the stories that she could tell. Madonna. Madonna would just be somebody that would have to keep things interesting, and especially thinking about the serious yeah, the seriousness of Dan Gable and my great grandfather. You need somebody in there to liven it up a little bit.
Oh yeah, I'm sure she'll liven it up.
Throw Madonna in the mix, especially if she would dress normal. So Madonna, I'm requesting that you dress normal during this dinner. And then the fourth one, man, the fourth one.
That's a tough one to come up with. I struggle with that fourth one too.
The fourth one, I think I'm gonna have to go with. Oh, as long as we can change his accent a little bit so I can understand him, maybe Napoleon.
Oh wow, that's a lot. That's a good one.
Again, because of his mind, because
Sure.
I would truly like to understand, how he structured his battles.
Yeah.
I've always said that when I'm done learning is when I need to get out of the game, and not that I'm coaching anymore, but I still like to learn.
Sure.
And I think I could learn a lot from someone like him or Genghis Khan or someone like that, and just learning how they structured their militaries and stuff like that would be phenomenal. So I guess that's my four. Yeah.
That's a good four. I mean, three real serious ones, one fun entertainment one. So,
Yeah.
and, let's be honest, Madonna, besides entertainment, could really tell you as to how to how to maintain a career for 40 plus years. I mean, she's been, one of the top performance people for 40 years. So I'm sure you could get a lot of interesting stuff from her. That's for sure.
No doubt. Interesting. Interesting is the way to phrase it. Yeah.
All right. Oh, hey, last thing I forgot to ask. So let's tell the fans, who are your college sports? I know you have, obviously two favorite teams. One for football would be.
Well, go Gators.
Go Gators, right? And then.
Yep.
And then wrestling.
Iowa. Go Hawkeyes.
I don't know, man. I'm a Penn State guy, but I get you.
Yeah.
It was your year this year too for the Hawkeyes. It's a shame.
It was, man. It was. Hey, I live in Central Florida, so if UCF can consider themselves national football champs, come on.
and you got to go to a dual meet this year, correct? Right?
Oh yeah. Me and Andrew, we got to go, and I've never been to one. It was definitely on my bucket list. There were 15,000 people packed in an arena, and the arena is shaped like a bowl, and it was just, from the outside, the place didn't look any bigger than our gym. Yeah. But when you get inside, it was just, and it was against Penn State, and it came down to the last match. And it was, me and Andrew were sitting next to each other, and we had to yell at each other just to hear each other talk. And it was amazing. If I had the chance to go back right now, I would. And, and one of the coolest things, and I think high school sports could learn from what we experienced the next day. We got to go to one of their practices, and majority of their practices are open. We were told they weren't going to have a practice, so we didn't try and get there, early or anything, but we got there at the end. And again, in the wrestling world, University of Iowa, they're famous,
Right.
And when we got to the door, shoot, Alex Marinelli, he was actually walking out, and he was like, "Oh, hey guys, here, let me let you in and talk to us just like," because you needed a card to open the door. So he talked to us just like we were his buddies. Wow. And again, here I am, a 47-year-old guy acting like this kid is. I mean, I'm total fanboy mode here, And when we walked in, Tom Brands is talking to somebody, but he stopped long enough to shake my hand and say, "Hey, welcome." And then we sit down and we see all these guys here, and they all, almost all of them, come over, shake our hands, and one of them recognized us from the night before from getting pictures with them, and nice to see you again. And I know that's kind of part of their responsibility or part of their job. It's because they have to sell their team, and they have to, because by selling their team and doing that part of it, that's going to cause us to buy shirts and sweatshirts and, that kind of stuff. But it's just like I said, that is definitely a memory I will remember for the rest of my life. And the fact that I got to do it with Andrew, for those of you who don't know, that's one of my sons I got to coach. And it was phenomenal. So, yeah.
That's awesome. What a great experience. And, we didn't touch on you coaching your sons. Do you want to leave the crowd, what was that experience like, I guess? I don't know. I don't want to keep rolling too much, I know, but what a cool experience that probably was as well. And I don't know if you want to share with me.
Yeah, it was, it was, that was a huge. I got to coach my two oldest, Nick and Andrew. I coached Nick for the 1 year that we were together at Deltona. He wrestled at Deltona, and then we came over to university, and so yeah, it was heart filling because you take pride in all your athletes. Sure. But when it's your own sons, there's obviously an extra something there, but it goes the other way too. The heartbreaking moments.
Sure.
At the state tournament, both of them ended up being one match from placing at the state tournament. And when you see those seniors, any senior, lose their last match, I mean, I know you've been there as well, just seeing that pain in those kids' eyes. There's absolutely nothing you can do to make it better. There's nothing you can say, nothing you can do, nothing you can give them. It tears you up. Yeah, no. But there's two people I'll never forget the look on their face, and honestly, one of them is not my son. One of them is Phil Wabi. So I don't know if you're a kid from Atlantic. Do you? Okay. And the other one is Andrew. And just the look on his face when he lost that match, and he just crumbled against. It was almost like he was melting against the wall. I'm not an emotional guy. I'm not a crier. I'm not a whatever. You try to help them as much as you can in that moment. And I had to walk away. just
Sure.
because I didn't want to be emotional, you know. So
Sure.
it's like, and then in that case, my wife is there too. So what happens when I get up from trying to make him feel better? I make eye contact with my wife, who
Yeah.
naturally she sees both of us there, and she's got tears in her eyes. And I'm
Sure.
like, oh my God, you know. So,
Uh,
but at the same time, there's also some super proud moments as
yeah.
well.
Sure.
You know, those moments like Andrew's sophomore year when he qualified for states the first time. I'm
Yeah.
sure you remember this. His sophomore year, he wasn't having a great year statistically, you know, during the season, and there were people that had beaten him. And then regionals was at university, and he had come back and had beaten kids that had beaten him during the year, and
Right.
he had not just beat those kids by 1 or 2 points,
Yeah.
but was beating them by a lot at the
Right.
regional tournaments, and just the look of pride and accomplishment on his face was just wow,
Yeah.
you know. And then with Nick, his senior year, one of his big accomplishments wasn't winning or losing, it was maintaining weight. And it
Oh
was
yeah.
actually at our tournament, Clash of Champions, that first tournament was getting down to weight. You
Sure.
know, Nick was always super good about his weight management and just his discipline and stuff like that on maintaining his weight. And
Sure.
I remember in the finals when he came off the mat, he didn't win, but I was super proud of him just because he maintained his weight. And he just looked at me and said, "Dad, I don't remember what weight class it was. And I don't remember if you do or not." But he said, "Dad, I'm not wrestling that weight class again." And I just said, "Okay," just
Yeah.
because I saw the work he put in to do it.
Sure.
And yeah, just, you know, you go both ends of the spectrum there, the pride and the heartache. So yeah, it was cool.
That is cool, and I think every father hopes to get that opportunity one day in life to be able to coach your kids and to see them succeed, but also be there to guide them through the tough times. And
I
so
don't recommend it though. I really don't. It's
it's
hard.
tough. I know. I can imagine. I mean, my son's only 9, so I don't have that right now, but maybe
And
one day.
sometimes it's totally unfair to them as well, just
True.
because you know, to try and maintain a sense of fairness
Sure.
for the team, they got treated unfair probably
Sure.
sometimes, just because I never wanted it to seem like they got treated differently.
Sure.
You know, so they probably got treated unfair, you know, and I was probably harder on them than I was on anyone else. Just I never wanted anyone to say, you know, oh, it's daddy ball, you know, so
Sure.
to speak. And the only reason they did it is because they're Coach Weaver's kids.
Sure.
So
Well, I think I've seen in my experiences around you and all my other fellow coaches, the dads who are coaches that I think do it the best are sometimes hardest on their own kids because they, like you said, they don't want anyone to doubt that those kids earned what they got. And like you said, I can imagine it's a little unfair for the kid because they don't really have the dad at that moment. They have the coach, but I'm sure long term, both Andrew and Nick look back and are very thankful for the opportunity to be coached by you and to be around you so much. I'm sure you guys formed some awesome memories that you'll last a lifetime. That's for sure. Well,
yeah,
well, Coach, I guess we should probably wrap it up. Thank you for joining me on your coach's corner. It was fun flipping the roles, and
well,
I
thank you
thought,
for hosting me.
and I think you've done an excellent job doing this, and I'm sure the community's thankful for it.
All right, well, thank you, Coach. I appreciate it too.
All right, man. Take care.
You too.